Hi everyone! This video is basically on the first of the 7 habits of highly effective people. It's called being proactive, which basically means that we are responsible for the creation of our own life. That's basically the whole moral of it. So basically the first point I'm going to make is the differences between proactive and reactive people, which are basically the opposites of each other. So I'll start off by giving some characteristics. Start with proactive people, and that is they realize that they're responsible for their own actions and that things happen for a reason. They're driven by values, and they focus their energy on the circle of influence, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Whereas reactive people believe certain things happen because of certain circumstances or conditions, and they blame problems on external things. And they focus their energy on the circle of concern, which I'll talk about later with the circle of influence. They're the people that, blame and accuse and focus their energies on other people's weaknesses and problems in their environment. Basically transferring responsibility. And so a real indicator of being proactive and reactive people is our language. There's certain phrases. I'll show you some right here. So here's a table of reactive and proactive language. They're basically the same sort of things, but for example, it says here, there's nothing I can do as a reactive language. And let's look at our alternatives, is the proactive way of saying there's nothing I can do. So basically by saying there's nothing I can do, it's like saying something is limiting yourself. Here's another one. That's just the way I am. So you're basically saying is you're determined. There's nothing you can do. And he makes me so mad. Basically like saying I'm not responsible. My emotional life is governed by something. Something outside of... I'm not in control of my emotional life. Or another phrase would be, I can't do this, I can't do that, I just don't have this, I just don't have time. So it's basically like saying something outside of me is in control. Here's some opposites. I have to do that. Or, I will choose an appropriate response. Basically when you say I have to do something, it's like saying something's forcing you to do what you want. You're not free to choose your own actions. Here's another one. If only my wife were more patient. It's like saying someone else's behavior is limiting your own effectiveness. And the next thing I'll talk about is the circle of influence and the circle of concern. The circle of influence basically includes things that you can do stuff about. When you're facing a certain challenge or problem or whatever, this is what we can do. And basically proactive people focus their efforts on the circle of influence. Circle of concern would basically include our health, our problems at work, our children, etc., etc., which we all have. You see, your proactive and reactive people can both have concerns. See, proactive people look at what they can do. Reactive people focus their energies on blaming and accusing and problems in their environment and blah 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 blah. And I think many people are very stuck into the idea about, it's called Freudian psychology, which basically says that whatever happens to you early in your life, or as a child, or basically, it basically shapes your character, and there's nothing you can do. You're determined to respond a certain way, and that genetics and other people and your environment are responsible for your actions, which is not the case. They also mention a story of, Viktor Frankl. He's a Jewish psychiatrist imprisoned in the Nazi death camps in Germany with his family. His family was sent to the gas ovens, or they died. So, and he and his sister were the only surviving members. One thing, he was aware, he had the self-awareness that he could choose how it affected him. And so he was very inspirational to many people because he helped people find meaning in their suffering. So as he was teaching his students, he would project himself in many circumstances and giving people lessons that he was learning during this suffering. Yeah. This is one of my favorite quotes from Gandhi. It says here, "No one can hurt you without your consent. They cannot take away our self-respect if we do not give it to them." Another point I'd like to make is, while we are free to choose how we act in certain circumstances, we are not free to choose the consequence that comes with it. Consequences are governed by natural law, but behavior is governed by principles. So here's another piece of information I want to give. It's called the 4 unique human endowments. This is what makes us different from animals. So basically, the 4 unique human endowments are self-awareness, imagination, conscience, and independent will. In this habit, self-awareness is really the foundation to this habit. Self-awareness is defined as the ability to think about one's own thought process. We can examine how we see our self-paradigm and how it affects our attitudes, our behaviors, and how we see people. Imagination is defined as the ability to create beyond our present reality. Conscience is the awareness of right and wrong, and principles that govern behavior, and a sense of how much our thoughts and actions are in harmony with them. And independent will is the ability to act free of influences. I'd like to bring up a couple stories in here. First one is the home improvement industry story. Over a 3-day period, the industry wasn't doing very well, and they looked at what they were going to do, and they knew it was going to get worse before it would get better, and what we need to try and do to make it better, and so let me just look at my notes here. Yeah, so basically after the first day, they were looking at what's happening to us, and the widespread unemployment and pressures were high, and people were discouraged after the first day. So the second day, they looked at to see what's going to happen in the future. So at the third day, they looked at how they would respond to the challenge, to their problem of widespread unemployment and very high pressuring circumstances. So what they did in the morning, they talked about managing and reducing costs. And in the afternoon, they discussed increasing market share. which would be key to being successful. They brainstormed both areas, concentrated on very practical, doable things. At the end, a new spirit of excitement, hope, and proactive awareness concluded the meeting. So when you ask the question, how's business? At the first day, their answer would be, what's happening to us is not good, and the trend suggests that it will get worse before it gets better. After the second day, the response would be, what we are causing to happen is good. You're better managing and reducing your costs and increasing market share. That'd be part 2, actually. Part 1. Part 3, business is better than before. So reactive people would be like, oh, come on, you gotta face reality. You can only go so far with this positive thinking and blah, 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 blah. Well, we face the reality that we could choose how it affected us. Not facing reality would be to accept the fact that whatever is happening has to happen. Another story that Stephen Covey mentions is, two people who were really into each other are not so much into each other. So there's this guy asks him for help in a relationship he was having with the woman, and so he asks, if the feeling of love's not there, what should I do? And he says, love her, serve her. Well, he says, the feeling's not there. But what I'm trying to get at is, in that case, proactive people would view love as a verb, and reactive people view it as a feeling. Kind of like Hollywood kind of makes us believe that love's a feeling and not a verb. When you love someone, you serve them, you do them this and that. So it's actually a verb, realistically. So basically, he gives exercises at the end of every habit. In this case, I'll give you 2 of them. Maybe a 30-day proactivity test. I'll link the description in the. I'll put the description in the description box below. You can try the challenge, and I'll also put the challenge, the Habit 1 challenge, in the description box as well. Okay, that's pretty much everything. See ya!